Aaron Murphy here for ESPNAmerica.com, and joining me, my NHL partner in crime from the ESPN America podcast, Dennis Moloney. And Dennis, we're just here to talk about, what's been a pretty exciting NHL playoffs. And we were just talking off camera, your surprise so far, and of the first round, I guess.
Probably the LA Kings. They just stunned the Vancouver Canucks in the first round. I mean, the President's Trophy's winners, out, gone. I mean, no one would have picked the Kings. In fact, the whole West is basically a mess. Like, all the big teams are gone. San Jose, Detroit. No, I mean, it's such a strange, you got Coyotes, you got Predators, you got...
Well, this is the thing. Basically, a lot of the people said, the experts said, Penguins are going all the way, and they were going to play the Canucks. And I think some of us on the podcast were guilty of saying that. But I'll give you full credit. You said that the Blues were going to come out of the West, and right now, as you mentioned, the Kings, the Blues and Kings, a bit of a battle.
They're the only ones left of the, the safe picks. I mean, I try to kind of, go out on a limb with the Blues, but their goaltending situation is a big problem. I think that without, they're going to need to get someone to step up, or it's going to be a bad ending. They're getting it handed to them right now. I mean, the Kings are on fire. And if they continue to play on the road like they do, they're going to win that series as well.
Well, yeah, the Kings 5-0 on the road in the playoffs so far. That's unheard of.
It's definitely, it hasn't been done since, I think, 2005, the last time. Yep. I mean, that's impressive. I mean, it's hard enough to win a game in the first place in the playoffs, but on the road is even tougher. You got the crowd against you, you got everything going against you, and you somehow, come out on top. And impressively, too, not just like squeezing by, like getting
5-2, I mean, 5-2 in St.
That's
Louis.
a beating. I mean, that's that's something that's not gonna, it's not gonna sit well with the Blues.
Well, it looks like Jeff Carter finally paying some dividends there for LA. Let's move on to another series that we were talking about off camera. It's been kind of surprising. The Coyotes looking pretty good against what I think is a bigger, nastier Predators team in that semifinal.
Yeah, they went up 2-0. It's always good to win your home games. But, the Predators rebounded the other night, and they got a game, a solid 2-0 win. And I think the Preds are back in it, and I think, it's going to be, I think it's going to go 7, I think, that one.
Well, Pekka Rinne, 32 saves for his first career shutout. What a great time for the Predators netminder to get back in that series and get them back in there 2 games to 1 down.
That's the biggest key. I think if Pekka can continue to play at top level, they've got a chance. But if not, I don't know. That's a tough one to call. I really is.
We've been saying for the last month that if Lundqvist wasn't having the season he was having, Pekka Rinne would win the Vezina Trophy as NHL's best. Let's move on. Talking of Hank Lundqvist, the Rangers triple overtime last night against a really surprising Washington Capitals team.
The Capitals did the same thing the Bruins did last season. They got hot at the perfect moment, and they're starting to get all the bounces, all the things that are going their way. A triple overtime loss, a tough one, especially when Ovi hit the post in the first overtime. I mean, there were some chances that went by the boards that they should have cashed in on, and I think they'll be able to rebound from that. And we talked about it earlier. I think that the Caps will be able to make a series out of this, and it could go 7 as well. I mean, this is a crazy playoff season. I love it. There's been a lot of crazy no calls, crazy calls. I mean, you could even argue that the Bruins' last goal, they could have called goaltender interference on Newell and just,
Well, I mean, the refereeing is one thing. We'll talk about Brendan Shanahan in a second, but a team that really has looked great, and we talked about the Penguins being gone already. What about the Philadelphia Flyers, and more importantly, Giroux? What a season he's having in the playoffs.
It's incredible, but he's been that way all season. He's definitely been their go-to guy. I mean, he's stood up when it's time to, he's manned up in the locker room, and basically, he's carried them. I mean, he's definitely a driving force on that team, and he did it again. I mean, he did it again the other night. So it's like, if he continues to be hot, then they'll go forward.
Do you think Marty Brodeur, we talked basically the sun setting on what is going to be a Hall of Fame career, always been good in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, that series is tied. I think everyone in the hockey world is picking Philadelphia to beat New Jersey. Do you think Marty can pull out some magic here?
Marty's a A1 top goalkeeper, and he basically, he's driven that team for years. Like, they've always leaned on him, and I think he's still got it. And I think he's a Tim Thomas-esque type character that he can kind of, pull it out of the hat when they need to. And I think the Devils are the unspoken kind of, ghost team that's just kind of drifting through, playing their Devils brand of hockey, get a lead and then sit on it and just clog up everything. I mean, like you said earlier, it's boring to watch that kind of hockey, but it wins critical, tough playoff games. So
absolutely. I mean, they've got the Stanley Cups to prove that trapping system can work. Look, we mentioned sort of the discipline and stuff, and we've been talking for weeks about maybe a chance Brendan Shanahan missed an opportunity to give Shea Weber for his WWE-type act on Henrik Zetterberg. But then a week later, he gives Raffi Torres 25 games for his demolition job on Marian Hossa from the Blackhawks. We both think Brendan's got a tough job. Do you think he missed opportunity here, or has he gotten it fairly right?
I think it's really hard for him, especially with the playoffs. So much is at stake. And like we talked about earlier, the bigger players are kind of getting the breaks. They're not going to get these, these 5-game, suspensions, stuff like that. But something has to be done. I mean, guys are getting creamed. I mean, basically, it's been a knockout drag. I mean, it was like a WWF wrestling match the first round of the playoffs. I mean, there were so many calls, so many non-calls.
It was a bit ridiculous.
It was insane. I mean, I like old time hockey, but this is getting out of hand. And I think we discussed that we're going to have to. They're going to have to do something about it. They're going to have to find the coaches, find the teams. I mean, suspend the coach. I mean,
or someone's going to have the.
Or there's going to be a devastating injury to a huge star. Basically,
or like a huge star has to be suspended.
Exactly.
To send a message home.
Exactly. And that no call on Shea Weber was literally just that. You can't have that. That sends a message of like, well, if you're a big player, you can get away with these kind of things, and that's not the message the NHL needs to put out there.
Oh, totally agree. And look, we'll talk more about the NHL on the May podcast for ESPN America coming up later in May. But for now, Dennis, thanks for joining us here on ESPNAmerica.com.
Anytime, Murph. Always a pleasure.
Cheers. For the rest of the NHL playoffs, follow ESPNAmerica.com, Facebook, and Twitter.